For years, he was Arsenal's nightmare in midfield. Now Declan Rice is texting him, "No more fights, we're friends." Bruno Guimarães just became the exact weapon Arsenal used to fear. Today, I'm breaking down 5 things about this £75 million transfer that prove it's not just a good signing. It might be the smartest business Arsenal has done in years. And number 5 is the one nobody's talking about. Let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning. Before he wore an Arsenal shirt, Bruno Guimarães was Arsenal's problem. Every time these two clubs met, it was the same story. Newcastle United, hungry, physical, relentless. And right in the middle of it, Guimarães. Not just a good player, the guy who made Arsenal's midfield uncomfortable, the guy who won the ball back before you even realized you'd lost it. Think of it like this. Imagine you run a business, and every quarter there's one competitor who beats you to the punch, not because they're smarter, but because they simply outwork you in the room. That was Guimarães, the rival gym's toughest competitor. You respect him, you study him, you dread facing him. And the man standing across from him most often? Declan Rice. Rice and Guimarães became something like on-pitch rivals, two elite ball winners colliding in midfield battles that decided entire matches. Throw Jorginho into that mix and you had some of the most intense midfield trench warfare English football has seen in years. So when Arsenal signed him for £75 million in August 2026, the football world did a double take. Then Rice did something perfect. He texted Bruno, "Come here and please no more fights, now we're friends." Guimarães shared it publicly. And it's funny, but it's also the whole story in one sentence. The guy who used to be your problem is now on your payroll. And it's worth sitting with that for a second, because football doesn't usually work this way. Rivalries between clubs are supposed to be permanent. You don't expect the players who spent years elbowing each other in midfield to suddenly end up sharing a locker room, laughing about it in a text thread. But that's exactly the strange logic of the transfer market. Today's biggest threat can become tomorrow's biggest asset, purely because someone was willing to write the check. That's really the emotional hook of this whole story. It's not just a transfer. It's a rivalry getting absorbed. Arsenal didn't find a way to beat Guimarães. They found a way to stop having to. But here's the thing. A joke like that doesn't explain why Arsenal paid £75 million. So let's talk about what that number actually means. Because it's not what most fans think. Here's where people get confused. £75 million for one midfielder? Is that even rational? Let's break down how transfer fees actually work. A transfer fee isn't a price on what a player costs to build, like a factory-made product. It's closer to buying a house. You're not paying for the bricks and the cement. You're paying for what that house is worth to you, in your location, at this moment. Arsenal isn't just buying a footballer. They're buying scarcity. Elite, ball-winning, box-to-box midfielders who can tackle and carry the ball forward and read the game at a world-class level. They're incredibly rare. Like a limited edition sneaker drop. There are only a handful made. Once they're gone, they're gone. And if you want one, you pay whatever the market demands. Now here's the second way to think about that £75 million, and it might be the more important one. Insurance. You pay a premium today so you're not exposed to disaster tomorrow. You don't buy insurance because your house will definitely burn down. You buy it because if it does, the cost of not having it is catastrophic. That's this transfer. £75 million is the premium Arsenal paid against 3 risks. Injuries piling up, a midfielder burning out from overuse, and their entire engine room collapsing when it matters most. In business terms, this is a hedge. Arsenal saw a single point of failure and paid to remove it. And here's why that matters more than the raw number. Most fans look at a transfer fee in isolation, like it's a purchase you make once and forget about. But smart clubs don't think that way. They think about total cost of ownership. Not just what you pay up front, but what it saves you down the line. A £75 million signing that prevents a mid-season collapse, an injury crisis, or a trophy slipping away in April isn't expensive at all. It's actually cheap, relative to what it protects. That's the mindset shift here. Arsenal didn't overpay for a good player. They paid a fair price to eliminate an expensive problem before it happened, and that single point of failure has a name. It's Declan Rice. Which brings us to the number that should genuinely worry Arsenal fans. Rice has been playing almost every single minute. Domestic league, cup competitions, European nights midweek, over and over and over again. Here's an analogy. Imagine an employee who never takes a single day off. No sick days, no vacation, no rest. In the short term, they might even look like your most productive worker, but eventually it's inevitable. Output starts to drop, even if effort and commitment never do. The body and mind can't sustain that pace forever. something gives, usually right when you need them most. That's the risk that's been hanging over Rice and over Arsenal's whole season. One indispensable player with almost zero real rest, carrying an enormous competitive load. Now bring in Guimaraes. In economic terms, this is called capacity expansion. Instead of running one engine into the ground trying to power the whole car, Arsenal just installed a second engine of nearly equal power. Now there's real rotation without a drop-off in quality. Now Rice can be rested for a game here or there without the midfield collapsing. Think about how many teams have watched their season fall apart in the last 2 months. Not because of tactics, not because of bad luck, but simply because their best players had nothing left in the tank. Fatigue doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly. A half-second slower to close down space, a misplaced pass under pressure that never used to happen, a tackle mistimed by inches. Multiply that across dozens of games, and suddenly a title challenge quietly evaporates. That's the exact failure mode Arsenal just insured themselves against. It's not flashy. Nobody's going to make a highlight reel out of Declan Rice looked less tired in March. But it might be the single biggest factor in how Arsenal's season actually ends. But here's the part that changes everything. The payoff from this signing doesn't actually show up now. It shows up later, much later. And that timing is exactly why this deal makes sense. Pundits keep pointing this out, and it's the most underrated part of this whole transfer. The return on this £75 million investment isn't going to show up in October or November. It shows up in March and April, the business end of the season, when fixtures pile up, legs get heavy, and trophies are actually decided. A fresh Declan Rice and a fresh Bruno Guimarães in April is worth more to Arsenal than either of them exhausted in April. That's the entire bet Arsenal just made. Think about every title race that's collapsed in the final stretch because a team's best players simply ran out of gas. Depth isn't glamorous in August, it's decisive in April. And that's exactly why this transfer was built for a moment that hasn't even happened yet. There's actually a useful comparison here from outside football. Think about how companies stockpile inventory before a busy season. Nobody notices the warehouse in the quiet months. But when demand spikes and a competitor runs out of stock, the company that planned ahead cleans up. Arsenal is stockpiling midfield energy right now, in August, specifically so they're not the club running on empty when it matters in the spring. This is also why signing a player like this in the summer, rather than scrambling for a replacement in January, is so much smarter. January windows are panic buys, clubs paying inflated prices for whoever's available because they're desperate. Arsenal did this on their own terms, months in advance, exactly the way you're supposed to manage risk instead of just reacting to it. Which brings us to the final point, the one that ties this whole deal together, and the one most fans are completely missing. Here's what nobody's really saying out loud. 2 elite ball winners means Arsenal can rotate without losing quality, like a football team suddenly having 2 starting caliber quarterbacks instead of just one. You're never scrambling with a backup when your starter needs a breather. It also changes leverage. If Rice picks up a knock, Arsenal isn't panicking. They've already hedged their biggest risk. That's the insurance premium paying off in real time. And then there's the psychological shift. The player who used to physically and mentally battle Arsenal's midfielders every single time these clubs met is now standing next to them instead of against them. That relentlessness that made Guimaraes such a nightmare opponent hasn't disappeared. It's been redirected. Arsenal isn't trying to neutralize that aggression anymore. They're weaponizing it. So when you put all 5 of these together, the rivalry, the transfer fee, the workload crisis, the late season timing, and the depth it buys, this deal isn't really about signing a talented player. It's about Arsenal buying insurance against their own success. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say. You cannot compete across 4 competitions over a 10-month season with one indestructible engine in midfield. Something always breaks eventually. Arsenal just made sure that when it does, they've got a second option ready. And that option happens to be the guy who used to be their biggest problem.